On behalf of the editors of ENR, it is my privilege to present the 49th Annual ENR Award of Excellence to Steve Selkowitz. Come on up, Steve.
Needless to say, this is not a normal Thursday night for me. And you can see I have a couple of good friends out there. It's great package here. Nadine and Tom and Luke and others did an amazing job sort of fabricating the pieces of my life going back to 3 or 4 years old and back to just a month ago. So I really appreciate all this. And Paul and Jan, thanks again so much for the honor. I'm really deeply honored and excited about this award. I was excited and pleased to be part of this group of 25 that got all their awards today, who are really changing the world, and then further honored to be singled out for this one. I think it's really timely because it calls attention to the energy challenge that's come up a few times today already. But I sense it's a real problem for the nation, and I think the nation isn't quite sure where it's headed here. And this award, I think, validates a long-term effort that many of us have made, a lot of people have made in the field of energy efficiency and green buildings. And this is an aspect of building performance that, unfortunately, has managed to slip under the radar for many years, and hopefully we can change some of that now. So I want to spend a few minutes on that topic, and I want to make a pitch to you of sorts before the end here to see if we can mobilize people and get them moving forward. But I want to make a few personal comments first. The ENR editorial team has done this amazing job of digging and probing and questioning friends and colleagues over my adult life and going back even a bit further, as you could see from some of the video. It's provided me a great opportunity to reflect in some detail on what I've done and what's important and the choices I made and the reasons why. I'm guessing that a lot of you, like me, have sort of made it through all these years without actually thinking very critically about all these kinds of issues. It's the crisis of the day and the deadline of the week that tends to dominate, and I've enjoyed this experience the last few months quite a bit. It's been a new after-hours job for me. I've been digging into these boxes, and I'm a bit of a pack rat to begin with, so I've been exploring the corners of my basement. I think I found some boxes I hadn't opened since 1976. So I discovered all these treasures, and I shared a few of them with the team here, and you actually saw a few of those. 45 years ago this summer, interestingly, 1969, I spent those 2 months down in the village playing the Bucky Fuller World Game, and I got absorbed then in this sort of a new vision of what the world could be and what it should be. I left really fired up with this great optimistic view of the world and what we could do if we set our minds to it. As you saw, my role in World Game was to be the energy guru of sorts, to sort of look at the energy part of the message. And that was something that I picked up then and I did in graduate school, and eventually I found my way to Lawrence Berkeley Labs. So I've been the energy person ever since then. So over the years, I've come to believe that the energy challenge is really even more important because it touches on our lives in many ways. The impact of poor energy use makes the air unbreathable in major Chinese cities. You've probably seen that. Inefficient cook stoves put particles in the air that literally kills millions of people in the third world. So these are serious global issues. Energy efficiency is really a challenge, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's also a team sport. I mean, I'm up here getting this award, but I'm a representative of a whole lot of different teams that have made a difference over time. I feel good about the progress we've made, but it's much too slow, and we're simply not going to address the global problems we face if we keep going at the pace that we're at now. Sometimes I could dig up a paper I wrote 10 or 20 years ago about the issues and the problems. I could change the date from 1992 to 2013, and the paper would sound about right. So we've done some things, but we haven't done enough. We need to be moving much more rapidly forward. To be a bit more optimistic, it's been said that progress always occurs more slowly than we think, and I guess that's what I just said. But when it happens, its impact is often much larger, and I'm hoping that that's the case here. That's somewhat reassuring, and it keeps me going. So let me make a couple more comments on the challenge I want to talk about. The first is about openness and transparency. So I've worked in this glass and window business, and glass is transparent, so that makes sense. That's a 40-year endeavor. But I'm talking about transparency in a broader sense in terms of energy use. You probably know what the fuel efficiency of your car is, but you may not know the fuel or the energy efficiency of your house or your office. And if you do, you might not know how it compares to your neighbors or others. So it may be painful to hear, but one of the reasons that we don't know that is because energy is still too cheap. We don't pay enough attention to it. We don't track it. And there's a saying also that says you can't manage what you don't measure, and it's really critical that we be measuring these things very carefully. There are new rating systems here in New York City and other places around the country that require energy use to be revealed. I think that's an important first step. We have to go a lot further than that. We have to be able to take all that data, that raw data, and convert it into something that's actually actionable, that you can do something about. The new FlexLab testbed you saw is one of the tools we have to try to understand and tease apart the details of energy efficiency and make it more transparent. And our broader goal here is to be able to guarantee to an owner that when the building is built, it will use the energy that they expect. That's not the case today, and we want to move in that direction. That's a powerful business concept if we can make it happen, and some of the leaders in the industry are very interested in that. The second comment is about team efforts and partnerships, and especially private and public partnerships. Lawrence Berkeley Lab and the other national labs were created many years ago to solve complex problems of science and engineering that only teams could solve. And energy is one of those messy, complex problems. It won't be solved by even the smartest person on the planet working alone in her laboratory. It will take teams, and it will take investment over time. I've had the good fortune of working here with a team of several hundred people at the lab. The lab is 4,000, but several hundred of us work on energy efficiency. And the progress we made is in part a reflection of sort of working with this critical mass of expertise. Much of this work was publicly funded, and that's important because when it's publicly funded, we can share our outcomes with others. The Department of Energy, other federal and state agencies should get credit for their foresight and their investment. And I hope some of what you've heard reassures you that your tax dollars are being well spent at a time when people are questioning where our tax dollars should go. So we see important national and global issues here that need to be tackled, and the question is, can we mobilize the will and the resources to actually address them? We've done this before with more sort of standard engineering challenges. I was a space fan starting from scratch in 1961. In 8 years, we made it to the moon. That was pretty impressive. I think we have the talent and the means, but to some extent, I think we lack the vision today and the will. And quite frankly, when I look to Washington for a coherent long-term energy policy, most of the time what I see gridlock and not a path to the future. But the group in this room, I think, could change things, and I'm hoping that this evening might be a start for some of that. I can work with my colleagues at the lab and other research institutes, and I can do the easy stuff, the research stuff, the work in FlexLab, getting that up and running. We can develop clever new products and systems that save energy. But in the end, they're not going to solve the national problems if they're not out there in scale in the real world. So having a vision is important, and having the right vision is even more important. But the vision shouldn't be defined by the latest polls. Henry Ford once said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Think about that. So I hear a lot of voices today talking about energy pushing for the modern equivalent of faster horses. I don't think that's what we need. We need some new, clear thinking about what's out there. We have lots of smart young folks out there that are anxious to sort of do something important. I'm not sure that the world needs yet one more app for your smartphone, so let's get them to work on some of the challenges and problems that you all have in this room. So here's my call to action for you. Energy matters at a global scale because of geopolitics, and unfortunately read the news, read about the Ukraine, read about the Middle East, so that's not changing, and because of climate change. Just last week, the IPCC warned again that we're heading for trouble. The science on this, by the way, is pretty clear and has been reaffirmed once again by the latest reports. Again, please don't believe everything you hear on the internet. Just because you read it on the internet doesn't mean it's true, or on cable news. There are really serious problems out there. They're pretty well understood. Not all the solutions are understood, but the underlying problems are. So here's what we need to do, and it's not really new. Buildings consume 40% of all the energy used in the country. So let's rethink and rebuild the country and the planet's building stock to solve these problems. We've got half of the problem in our hands, really. Let's guarantee that the buildings we build will actually meet those goals over time. And this, if we do it right, is one of those classic win-win stories. There's an opportunity here for doing well, which I think most of you want to do, by doing good. So we know how to cut energy use in existing buildings by 50%, and we know how to build a new building that's essentially net zero, that doesn't use any more than you can generate on the site. The challenge here is going from the one-off to scale. So what kind of scale are we talking about here? Over the next 10 years, we will spend, and frankly mostly waste, about $5 trillion on energy use in buildings. That's trillion, not billion, $5 trillion. If we were to invest wisely over that decade, we could probably cut those losses in half. And those are savings that recur year after year after year. So we'd probably pay back that investment and then have more funds to put back into buildings if we were more careful about the energy use in them. But there's more. Let's look at life safety. We know about the impact of earthquakes and fires. Many of you work in this field. So we design buildings to address those threats. But buildings that don't respond well to climate also kill people. There was a heat wave in Europe in 2003, and you can look this up on the internet, that killed 26,000 people, mostly elderly. They were in buildings that were simply too hot and they couldn't escape from them. So this is a real challenge as well in terms of life safety. Research groups like mine at Lawrence Berkeley Lab have new tools like FlexLab and new models. We can create better buildings for all climates, and we're really eager to create new partnerships with those of you in this room to help make these changes. And we're not starting from scratch here. There are all kinds of interesting new programs in states and cities. New York City is doing interesting things. You heard some of that earlier this evening. And this needs to be driven by a kind of a Bucky Fuller-like vision of what we need to do to change the national landscape. I think it can only work with a public and private partnership. I think it's important that the broad goals and vision be shaped with a publicly shared vision of where we need to get to, but then in the end, the experience, the expertise, and the voice of the private sector is what will make it happen. The government's not going to do it for us. So we need your help to refine, promote, and implement that vision. No one said it would be easy, but then the best things in life really are. And speaking of the best things in life, I will leave the best for last. In addition to the friends and colleagues I noted earlier, I want to thank my family, and especially my wife, Barbara. You saw a picture of her before, who put up with all the travel and the missed family events and the 2 a.m. emails and the unfinished projects at home. I have quite a number of unfinished projects at home I can see that I'm going to do next week when I'm back. And her smile and her beautiful craft work and her advice and support keeps me going, and she never fails to remind me to turn the lights off as well. So, I want to thank ENR again for helping me get this energy message out to this group and the rest of the world. I look forward to working even harder on these challenges in the years ahead. I've got lots of energy, and I'd be delighted to continue the discussion with any of you that would like to do it later this evening and further into the future. Thanks so much again. Thank you.